Super Art ready.
What is good, everybody? I'm back with another video. Today we are playing some Castlevania. So this series, the game in general, just has a big place in my heart as a gamer. From all the way back playing the original Castlevania on the Nintendo back in the day when I had it, to falling in love with Castlevania 3, even though as a kid I didn't get to fully complete it. I ended up going back and beating the game later. Same with Castlevania 2, just because 2 was very different, but 2 would sort of be a precursor to probably the greatest Castlevania of all time, which is Symphony of the Night, which I am playing right here in the beginning. I was trying to get a little more footage from this game, but then I decided that I was actually going to play Grimoire of Souls, which is on Apple Computer, as part of the Apple Arcade store. So it was like a mobile game that released a couple years ago in like only certain markets, and then somehow they got like a port for it basically on the Apple Arcade. So initially I did have some segments from Rondo of Blood and Symphony of the Night, because I'm drawing both Richter Belmont and Alucard respectively. So I was like, that'd be weird, because my save data from Symphony of the Night from, you know, this version was already complete with Alucard, so it would have just been me kind of running around the open castle, just kind of not really doing much of anything, and it wouldn't have really matched up well with what I was trying to do. So I was like, okay. Then I thought about it. I said, hey, I can actually play Grimoire of Souls, and I haven't played it in a while, so it was fun to kind of get back into that. But I was like, you know, I'll keep the information in the video that I, you know, did with Richter, Symphony of the Night. Just play the beginning, that first fight. Obviously, I wish I had the OG PS1 version, so we could have got the, you know, the dialogue, the real true terrible good voice acting dialogue that we had back in '97. I remember buying that game for my birthday that year, my 13th birthday, of all birthdays, and the game releasing in October and me be born in October, you know. Yeah, Symphony of the Night was a big turning point in the series, just because at the time PlayStation and Saturn were really focused heavily on 3D games, and this game came out, it had 3D elements to it. There's parts of, you know, the backgrounds and things like that, and some special effects that are 3-dimensional, but for the most part it's 2D sprites. And the game didn't really take off upon release. It took a while for it to kind of catch fire, but you know, those of us who were there from the beginning, you know, it's goated for, you know, all the right reasons. It took some inspiration from, you know, the Super Metroid series, and sort of added like some exploration elements. But what I mentioned earlier about Castlevania 2 being a precursor was some of these elements were explored in that game. Oddly enough, a little history lesson. Some of the biggest part 2s in Nintendo, Super Mario 2, Castlevania 2, Legend of Zelda 2, were all a complete departure from their first games. If you know anything about Super Mario 2, you know that game is not an actual Mario game. It's from a Japanese game called Doki Doki Panic. They just redrew the characters and made them. But it became so iconic, some of those characters actually carried over into just, you know, the lore and the world building of, you know, Super Mario going forward. You know, the ability for the princess to float, you know, in the air. You think about what she does in Super Smash Brothers and things like that. A lot of that stuff carried over. Zelda 2 and Castlevania 2 were complete departures, and those two games are very similar. There is a town in the game that you go to, you talk to people, you get certain items, you have to do certain things at certain times. There's a day and night cycle in both games. We all know the legendary line from Castlevania 2, what a horrible night to have a curse. And then the game turns into nighttime, and the monsters, oddly enough, they become a little bit stronger. If something takes 3 hits, it may take 5 or 6, you know. There were elements that end up carrying over. So with Castlevania 3, they did branching paths. And that was what they were wanting to do going forward. They didn't get to that with Super Castlevania 4 because they had a different development team, but they did go back and revisit it for Rondo of Blood, which in that game the paths branch off into 2 areas, and then you fight a different boss depending on where you go. Like in stage 1, you could fight the snake on the bridge, the little skeleton snake, or you could fight the wyvern in like the end of the town or whatever like that. We do know they did release later in America a homogenized sort of butchered version of Rondo of Blood, which is and in Japan it's called Vampire's Kiss, but it's just Dracula X in America. In hindsight, it's not a bad game, but it's obviously not a faithful adaptation of Rondo of Blood. So, you know, it has some things about it that I actually like. I do like the last boss fight against Dracula, where you fight him on the different pillars that you have to jump on, and you know, it's just different. So yeah, I have been wanting to draw, you know, Alucard and Richter for a minute. I was working on something, and there was some old artwork I went back and revisited and sort of tweaked. And then, you know, recently Castlevania Nocturne had just, you know, released on Netflix a couple months ago, and I really enjoyed season 2. So I kind of wanted to capture the dynamic of, you know, Richter and Alucard teaming up. Alucard was also in Castlevania 3. He looks way different in that game, but yeah, that was cool to play him back in the day. I used to always thought it was cool that you can change into a bat. But yeah, for this picture, I wanted to get kind of like not so much action shots, but more like action poses of the 2 of the guys. So right now I'm laying down some lines for Richter. He's really cool to draw. I like his outfit. I took more inspiration for actually how the character's sprite look in the game. And then as you can see up top, I'm playing Grimoire of Souls. So Richter is not fully playable per se. He comes in as like an assist, basically. You have an alternative art that you can use, and it'll swap out a character. So you can play with Richter on screen for about 15 seconds, and then he goes back and you have to kind of cool off the timer. And the bar around his picture frame in the game builds up as you hit enemies. And once it's full, you can call them out again. And, you know, like I said, you can play with them for about 15 seconds, I want to say. And yeah, I usually just call on him during boss fights. Hit him with the Hydro Storm. We know that's like one of his powerful item crushes for the holy water. But yeah, that was the inspiration I took for his outfit, which I'm doing the lines for right now. But it was a really good picture. I kind of like, you know, how it turned out. I referenced a photo of Richter Belmont from the Game Boy Castlevania games. But obviously I made it Richter. So you may see a photo that's kind of similar to this. And then as far as the outfit, I think Smash Bros. I think the Smash Brothers game really got his outfit like kind of correct. So that's what I sort of use as a reference in terms of get the outfit details that I want. Castlevania Nocturne kind of combines the Ayami Kojima artwork of Richter when he's got the long hair and like the more kind of longer coat, but also they kind of reference the remake of Rondo of Blood that they did on PSP back in like I had it in 2007 on PSP, and I remember playing it on a trip to Vegas in the back car. In the back of the car, I drove up to Vegas with my mom for Christmas and stuff one year, and I was playing it. But yeah, the artwork in that game for Richter looks similar to what the Nocturne anime used for his outfit. And then sort of at the end when he's fighting Drolta and Elizabeth or whatever like that, he kind of rips the sleeves off, and then, you know, he's got the headband on, so he looks more like, you know, the Richter we've seen in, you know, the games and stuff like that. Rondo Blood actually has some pretty cool cutscenes too, like anime cutscenes. So I like that outfit. So I wanted to make it look more like the game as opposed to looking more like the anime. So that's sort of what I was using for reference and stuff like that. And then just getting some details and stuff like that, like his belt, the knife, and all that stuff like that, because that is a sub weapon. I thought about adding some more, like the axe, like possibly like the holy water. Thought that would have been cool. Actually, what I should have did was add like a holy water in his hand. I think that would have been kind of dope to add. Because I think he sort of made using sub weapons in the games a lot better, because he had like the item crush, which was like a more powered up version of using the sub weapons. So like the axe, I think he would jump and it would like spiral, like 8 different axes would spiral out in one area. The cross, he would do grand cross, and a bunch of giant crosses and light would kind of shoot up from the ground, hitting the enemies full screen. That's one of the more powerful ones. And then holy water, he would do Hydro Storm, and that it's literally just rain of holy water, and it hits everything, and it just melts health away, especially in Symphony of the Night. Like it's damn near a cheat code in that game. And then the knife item crush is pretty good too. If you ever fight Galamoth in Symphony of the Night, you want to get to like the top part where you can hit his head, and just make sure you got enough hearts and just item crush him to death with the knives, and he'll go down pretty quick. Drawing Alucard was pretty fun. I didn't add his cape just because, I'll be honest, I didn't feel like it. It's like he got too much going on, so I made his cape or his jacket a little bit longer, just to sort of give him that, you know, flowy kind of cape feel, but just extended his jacket, the bottom half of his jacket a little bit. And it's hard for me to draw his face, because I know it is very feminine looking, just because, you know, he's a shonen character, aka a pretty boy in Japan, as they will call it. If you ever see that word, the shonen, which I would hope some of the people that are watching this know that lingo, but if you don't, that's what that word means. Pretty boy, basically. But yeah, I was trying to make sure to make it look too feminine without making him look straight up like a woman. But I think the face came out pretty good. I think I did rework a little bit of it that I didn't record when I was like touching up some small things. But overall, I think it came out pretty good. His outfit is not overly intricate, but you know, it's the little details and things like that I like working on, like the stuff on his jacket, you know, the buckles and things like that, and just making sure I, you know, get something in. That's what I'm working on right now. These things take time. Like some of the videos recorded in just the normal speed were like over an hour. The fact that I can speed it up and squeeze it into a video about, you know, 25 minutes. The power of technology, you know, I like it. But yeah, I had fun drawing it. I think I'm gonna do some more. I think I'll do a Symphony of the Night picture again. I did one a few years ago, actually. I drew Richter, Alucard, and Maria, all from Symphony of the Night. So this was grown-up Maria when she's about 17, 18, I think, in terms of the game story. Symphony of the Night does one of the few times that a game took place right after another game, and it took place a couple years after Rondo Blood, and Maria was looking for Richter to find out what had happened to him and stuff like that. And then Alucard obviously gets thrown into the mix this time too, so, which I think was a good decision. And I think going forward after Symphony of the Night, a lot of the games took the similar Metroid style exploration approach to the games, which I think works for Castlevania. I don't mind it, but I also like if games sort of went back and took more of the Rondo of Blood and Castlevania 3 approach too, and just do like split stages where, you know, if you go down the stairs as opposed to maybe walking straight, or vice versa, going up a set of stairs versus walking straight, you encounter a different part of the map and it dictates where you go in the game. I mean, ultimately you still get to the end boss the way you get to the end boss, but you know, having alternate bosses and things like that, I think that's a good idea too. But I do like that, you know, that game started a whole genre. They call it Metroidvania, basically. I don't really care for the term like that myself. I just like, it's 2D exploration is what it is. Games where you have to go back to multiple rooms and check things and, oh, I have this item, I can use it here, type stuff. Here I'm using the line tool to do the sword because I wanted it to be straight. And then now we're getting to the color. The background I had, it's always been there. I just had the layer hidden. It's a castle in the back. It's actually a still from the TV show. I think it might have been from season 2 of the first Castlevania series, the one with Trevor and Alucard and Sypha. But I use that as a backdrop, just because I thought it was cool and it fit. I do want to get more into drawing backgrounds and environments. It's not really my forte. I've always more so been characters, drawing like people and stuff like that, monsters and things like that. Backgrounds, like, I can do them, but I'm also, it's not like my strong point. But I want to work on that, you know, for larger pieces. And also too, because I want to keep the video to a certain length, it would have definitely like took a lot of time. So here I'm laying down the actual shadows and things, where the shadows and the light and stuff are gonna hit on the characters. And since the moonlight's behind them, making sure I do that correctly. I also knew I was gonna have some special effects with Alucard, where he's kind of like casting like sort of a magic spell of some sort, but doing a boss fight up here for Grimoire of Souls. So you have to knock out the knees and then you get the thing to fall down, and then you can also hit these little things here that shoot arrows at you. This is actually a remake of a boss from one of my other favorite Castlevania games, Order of Ecclesia, with Shinoa. I thought her character was pretty cool. She wasn't like a Belmont or anything like that. She was like part of this order that was called Order of Ecclesia. They use these magic glyphs to absorb the attacks and the strengths of the monsters that she kills. And you get all these different cool little attacks. I think they translated her in this game really well. I didn't use her for this because I wasn't drawing her. Maybe when I do my next Castlevania, I'll actually play Order of Ecclesia because it is out now that they have the Dominus Castlevania collection out recently. I have it on Steam, so I can play it on there. I didn't buy it on PS5, but if I need to, I will. I most likely will just play it off Steam and just screen record my whole laptop and just get the footage that way. That way it's like nice and crisp, and it's already there. So I have Steam on the same computer that I do my video editing on, so it'll make it easier to just translate and do it that way. And I do like her character too, so I do want to draw her. So another Castlevania will probably be coming up here pretty soon. Another Castlevania video. I also wanted to get away from fighting game videos, even though the next video after this will be another fighting game. Just spoiler alert. But yeah, I thought it would be a nice break in, you know, what I've been posting, mostly fighting games, and just do like an action adventure game, you know. I do plan to do some Mega Man in the future too. I've drawn Mega Man in Zero before, mostly sketches. I think I did one color picture of Mega Man a while ago. I also want to do Devil May Cry. I did a Dante like 2 years ago that I want to do again. Maybe do a Dante and Trish. See, Dante, I could do a fighting game too, because he's in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, along with Trish. But I think for that one, I would probably use the Ultimate Edition of Devil May Cry 4, or whatever version it's called, where you can play as Trish and Lady. Just so I can do Bloody Palace. That's like my favorite mode in all the Devil May Cry games is, you know, once you beat it, you get to play the Bloody Palace. You go through 100 levels of just fighting enemies and bosses and stuff. That mode's always been dope. And DMC4 I put a lot of time into, so that might be next. Not next, but coming down the road, I think I'm gonna do a Dante. But I'll definitely do another Castlevania video. I may even do Simon Belmont, or another Belmont, depending on what game I play. But yeah, that's it for this video. I'm almost done laying the colors and all that stuff, and then another video will be coming soon. I had worked on this video and my Terry Bogard and Rock Hard video kind of simultaneously at the same time. And then after those two, I do believe I said I was going to do Ninja Gaiden. So I'm going to be playing Ninja Gaiden Black. I don't know if I'm going to go through like the game. I already beat the game recently, but I'm going to play through the Ninja Trials and just do some of those. Because I like some of those challenges you do where you just fight a bunch of enemies and stuff in a room until, you know, you're done. I like that. And it's a little more exciting. The game is very visceral and fast paced, so I just want to capture that. But yeah, that'll be it for this video. You can finish watching the rest of the drawing process, the coloring process, I should say, and then the big art reveal at the end. But anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed this, and I will see y'all in the next video. Peace.